Good evening. My name is Noah Herndon, and this is the Groundview. This evening, I had the opportunity to interview presidential candidate Aidan Mcdermott and his vice presidential candidate Liam Grolemund. We had the opportunity to talk on their message of "How do you love?" and I enjoyed being able to speak with the only student ticket running this year. I hope you enjoy this segment on the Groundview. Well, good evening, gentlemen. I'm so excited to be able to have you here on an interview with the Groundview. If you wouldn't mind each just introducing yourselves to the Team Pack student body.
Want to start? My name is Liam Grolemund. I am the vice presidential candidate for the Mcdermott Grolemund campaign. I'm very excited to be here. And you go.
I'm Aidan Mcdermott, running as the president for the Mcdermott Grolemund ticket, and I'm super ecstatic to be here and be interviewed by the Groundview. And I can't wait to see how God's going to move through this interview here and see what needs to be said and what needs to be put out there.
Absolutely. And again, we're so thankful to be able to have you join the Groundview. We're heading into the final stretch before NatCon, and we're definitely wanting to reach out to all the presidential candidates. So again, thank you so much for being willing to meet with us. Just kind of to go ahead and start, this interview, if you don't mind telling us each how y'all got into Team Pact, how long you've been with the organization, and how many state classes you've been to.
You want the long or short answer?
We'll start off with a short answer, and then we'll go into some more specifics later.
Okay, all right. I guess I'll go first with that kind of answer. But I got into Team Pact because of this person right here. He kind of brought me into it, and I didn't expect much when I went because I've never really been to any 4-day camps or any camps where they would about God or where they would go over any specific subject. So I went, I didn't know what to expect, and I had a great time. And the first time I went, I'd say that's the week I became a Christian. So it was quite a life-changing experience. And I've only this is my second time going to NatCon, and this year is my second year going to Team Pact. So
awesome. And then Aidan?
Yeah. So I got into Team Pact 6 years ago. I was 13, and I fell in love with it. Early on, like every other person who's ever gone to Team Pact, my mother drove me into the first day class. I was not wanting to do this, not wanting to go, and here I am now, 6 years later. This will be my second time going to NatCon. And yeah, just Team Pact has done everything, just moved me and just built up a character in me. And I can't wait to see how God will use that in future reference, because this is my last year. I age out and go to college, and then be able to use what Team Pact has taught me throughout all those years to really just put a good foundation of my character.
Wow, that's incredible to hear about kind of your different stances in Team Pact. Aidan, you've been there for 6 years, Liam for 2, and the fact that y'all have both had such fulfilling experiences through Team Pact is absolutely incredible to hear. Now, we talked about the short answer and the long answer. So I'll start with Aidan. Aidan, what has been one experience you've had in Team Pact or throughout Team Pact that just kind of sticks out to you as your prominent Team Pact experience that always comes to the forefront of your mind?
Ooh, there's a lot. There is so much to choose from here. But does this include alumni events or just state classes?
Absolutely, anything in Team Pact.
Okay, so definitely would be last year NatCon, when I gave my life to God, and I went through and I submitted, and I was like, this is what I want. This is what I'm gonna do. That for sure sticks out to me and is 100% my go-to story whenever I tell people about my Team Pact experience. Being my roommate, being there for me, and kind of just preaching to me, telling me hey, this is what it is. I've always struggled with ego problems or anything along the lines of that, and him being able to minister to me and able to tell me that you are no better than the person next to you, and just being able to pull that off of me and be submit. I can't get away from that story, and I can't stop telling that story, because just that's what Team Pact does. They do that over and over and over.
That is absolutely incredible. I remember being your rendezvous leader last year and you coming to me and saying, I just rededicated myself to Christ, and how much joy myself and another presidential candidate, Blaise Timmons, felt as your rendezvous leaders hearing that account. And that's just incredible to hear. That's an incredible testament to Team Pride in and of itself. Now, Liam, you kind of hinted at this, you having like a similar story, at least in terms of like coming to Christ.
Yeah. Before Team Pact, I was raised as like a Christian and a traditionally Catholic, and my parents have always kind of been traditional Catholics, and I kind of went because my parents made me, and I didn't really believe any. I kind of looked at all Christians and most religions as like crazy religious people. That's how I looked at basically all religions until I went to Team Pact, and when I finally saw that there was some worth in it, and there was something. It was more than just people believing in something that doesn't exist. What they believe in is it's actually there. It's actually with us, and it was a really life-changing moment. And I always come back to it as Team Pact is where I became a Christian, and then NatCon is where I learned how to be a proper Christian. So Team Pact is where I became one, and then NatCon I figured out how to support people in their through Christianity and how to make people become closer to God, kind of. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible to hear that you both kind of had these experiences. You know, we build things up at state class, but then NatCon is an event that kind of just takes everything to a higher level. And so that's just incredible to hear that y'all had this shared experience. Now, I do want to ask, you know, how did y'all come to decide to run for student body president and vice president this year?
You want to explain the story?
I will gladly explain the story. Okay, so if you go look at our Instagram, we posted our first we're running back in August of 2022. We wanted to get like a bit of a head start, and I vividly remember we got
way too early.
It was a little early, but we got back from NatCon last year, and we were just kind of going about it. And the idea of us running for president was a little hinted at actually NatCon, but we were like, at that point, it was just an idea. And he's got a pool in his backyard, and we were just chilling in his backyard. And
it was like 12 at night.
It was like 12 at night.
He was on like a little like shark floaty in the pool, and we both had like energy drinks, and we were just talking, and we were like, "Do you want to run for president?" And that's basically how it started.
And I knew he was on board because when he's serious about something, he starts to do this like little march walk, and he walked around this pool for a good hour and a half. We came up with the message, "How do you love?" We came to the idea of merchandise that we would sell. We came up with the idea of like things we can give out while we're actually at NatCon. Just everything. Everything happened that night, and then the next day we were like, all right, we put it on paper.
And that's what we did. So.
Well, that is an absolute incredible story to hear. Probably one of the more thrilling, I would say, just experiences of just coming to run. But no, like that invigoration, that spirit to run is really good to hear. Just as we're moving into the election, we don't want candidates who are just running for the sake of it. We want people who are more passionate, who are willing to go that extra mile. And even considering it early, I definitely don't think it's something to be ashamed of. And I think that your spirit, your eagerness for this election has kind of reflected in your campaigning and in your voter base. Now, you kind of talked about how, Liam was doing his march around, like came up with the message. Do you want to go into more about your message of how do you love?
I would love to. Would you like to start?
No, you go ahead and start.
All right, I'll go off and then he'll piggyback off of me. So we came up with "How do you love" because when we were actually at NatCon, we were kind of like hinting at it. I mentioned something about running with a message of something that has to do with love. And that night we were discussing it, and we came to the conclusion of "How do you love?" and which is short for "How to love like Jesus," or how to strive to love others like Jesus did and does, and just like no matter how difficult they are, no matter what the circumstance is, that it always falls back to you continue to love the person because they are still created in the image of God, and they're still human. That's how we came up with the idea of "How do you love?"
And then Liam, is there anything you can add to that?
We specifically had two Bible verses, which he had Matthew. It's on the. We actually have it on the back of our shirts, mentioning the mentioning the merchandise, and I had a Bible verse of Luke, and it's specifically. I think it goes very well with the message of homelessness, especially now. Which, I mean, we didn't even know homelessness was the issue until after we did the. We didn't know we created our whole "how do you love" before we even knew homelessness was going to be the actual issue that we did, and it just turned out really well with it. And specifically one of the Luke, is it Luke?
It's actually Luke 6:27-31.
In that it talks about how when someone you need to be generous to people, and when someone strikes you in the cheek, offer the other also. And when someone is, and there's also in there. It talks about if someone steals your tunic, offer your cloak also. I think I switched tunic and cloak around, but it gets the same point across. Of we need to be kind and generous to those who aren't so kind and generous, and the people who tend to be not so kind and generous tend to have, especially in homelessness, the whole mental aspect of things. It tends to cause a few hurdles, and no matter how those people act, we still need to be kind to them and treat them like brothers and sisters in Christ.
Absolutely. And I think almost foresight that y'all can now have was homelessness being this issue, because I think your message does directly tie into that issue of mental health and the homelessness issue of this year. And so kind of impressive to see just how closely those two relate. I do want to ask do either of y'all have like a specific example of this message kind of playing out in your life or seeing its impact in just your interactions with people? We'll start off with Liam and then we'll go to Aiden.
Okay. In my life specifically, how do you love? I have always had a problem with, how should I say, conversing with certain types of people. There's certain people like this, like Aiden right here. It's just easy to get along with them because we're very similar, but there are a lot of people in my life that are harder to love, especially people who aren't quite as in the faith as I am. But those are the people we need to strive to go out more so than others. There's been a lot of situations in my life where there could have been a point where I could have been more outgoing about my faith, and it probably would have had a better outcome, and they would have been closer to God as a result, but I haven't. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that's with the whole message going along there. It's, as I say, it's to make sure that I don't make the same mistake again. And I want to be as outgoing in my faith, and I want to love others as much as I'll never love people as much as Jesus did, but as close to that as possible.
And then Aiden.
So I would definitely say yes. I've had a few people in my life that were that were difficult for me to love, difficult for me to want to be around, and want to just continue to minister to. I have a problem with if someone doesn't like I have a problem with continuing to try to talk to somebody, especially if I can tell they're not listening. I start to, and because of that I could start, I can jump to conclusions, and then I'm going to want to back off. And so we chose, and the message kind of ties into both something that we both do struggle with. And we felt that it would be a lot better to do so, especially because when we're struggling with it, we kind of can get out and we can announce it to the world saying, we struggle with this, but we have something we can strive for. And how I've done that in my own life is forgiveness. Through forgiveness, love is a lot easier to achieve, because love can get thrown out the window due to a situation that could have happened. But in order to reel it back, you can start with forgiveness and forgiving those who have trespassed against me, and forgiving them and being like, hey, I still love you. And what can we do about this situation? Is definitely, I've done that a few times in my life.
It's incredible to hear that y'all have a message that, directly applies into your lives. And especially moving forward, I think that's something that the voters are going to be looking for is it's very easy when candidates are coming up with messages to kind of create something that is overarching and more so general and doesn't really have a specific application. And so to hear y'all specifically talk about how that applies in your life is absolutely incredible to hear. That's something we've kind of seen over the campaign trail as candidates specifically having messages that relate to their own personal trials or their own personal their pursuits. And so that's just incredible to hear. Now, I do kind of want to move to the different section of elections, which is going to be the voting issue, which you kind of touched upon. But one cannot form a base on the voting issue without choosing your party. Now, looking at Instagram, y'all have decided upon the Perseverance Party. Could you tell me a bit why y'all decided to run in that party?
Should I start?
I can start. Excuse me. The reason why we decided to run the Perseverance Party is because I'd say it's the easiest to argue for mental health, which sounds funny. I mean, there's a decent argument for housing first and and raising the minimum wage, although there really isn't an argument for that. But I don't want to say it aligns politically, but it's easier to argue for. And to me, when I was deciding a party, it's like, this makes the most sense to solve homelessness, and it seems like it would work the best of solving the problem of mental health, and especially what goes hand in hand with mental health, especially when it comes to homelessness, is drug abuse. And if you can get rid of drug abuse, and if you can solve the mental health crisis and the drug abuse problem in the homeless area, a lot of the issue goes away. And then once that's done, you can focus on the whole housing aspect of things. But it seemed easier to argue for opinion.
Hey, do you have anything to add to why y'all chose Perseverance?
We chose Perseverance. We actually originally were thinking about running in Compassion. And we were like, yeah, Compassion. But then we actually thought about it some more. And Compassion is normally the smallest of the three, the baby brother. And it's, we were like, we could run there and have a higher chance of getting out and getting into generals, or we can go in Perseverance, where there's the bigger party, a bigger voting base. That if we were to get into generals, we would have more of a voter base due to the bigger party. That's just a small aspect of why we chose Perseverance. But like you said, it does align in a lot of ways of how we run our own lives. And when we were reading the stances on the parties, we were like, yeah, Perseverance is the one we're going to want to go through with here. And then actually even seeing who's running against us in Perseverance, it gives me a very, 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 it makes me very happy to see who else is running in Perseverance and who's chosen this amazing party.
That's good to hear, especially, Perseverance is set to have the most candidates running in it. I believe we have 3 tickets. Y'all as Mcdermott, Grolemund, Howard Smith, and in Bigler Freeland. And so we're very excited to see what ends up developing in that primary. And while the Groundview has no official predictions on that, we believe it will be the most highly competitive party moving into the primaries. Now, going off of Perseverance, Liam, you brought up the issue of mental health. Perseverance, the party stance has been announced for Perseverance on the issue of homelessness. And y'all were just asked to make a press release on that issue. Would y'all mind going into what your campaign's response is to the voting issue of homelessness, specifically relating to mental health?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So I'll say like the first little portion that we're going to do here, and it's better 100% for certain better rehab, like along the lines just across the board, better rehab. And that's what we're going to kind of strive for. We're both from the great state of Texas, and due to that, we thought it would be right to talk about the border crisis or the drug issue or anything like that, and start doing research along the lines of that. In my press release, once TPN announces it, I actually have a few sources that I have cited inside of my press release that shows that there are certain cases of this needing to be solved. But when we get up to NatCon, I know like when we're up on stage, we're not allowed to have anything with us. So him and I are gonna study and start to memorize certain sources that shows how what we're talking about is an actual problem and we do need to solve it. And that's kind of what we want to hit on, is really hit on the drugs, make sure that and do what we can to stop them from crossing both borders, and then and better rehab for those who do actually have problems like that, because I believe one of the sources I cited actually in my press release talks about how 75% of homelessness have mental health issues or drug abuse problems, and so we really want to hit on that.
Another big reason that we believe that the whole border, because most of the drugs that are coming into America come from Mexico, come from the cartels, and 60% of homelessness in America is in California alone, and that also connects with the border.
Mhm.
And we really want to hit on with the whole drug problem, because drugs don't cause they can cause mental issues, but what people usually do is they will, in order to cope with what they're going through, in order to use it as
And
an outing, is they'll use drugs and become addicted to them, and it'll either cause some harm to them, or it may even cause their death. And we really want to try and hit on that and try to prevent that, to rehabilitate people, to get them off of drugs, and to especially just help people with any mental issues that people have. And it also comes down to veterans. I'm pretty sure
it was 1 in 10 homeless people are veterans.
Yeah, veterans should be some of the most. They are the most honorable, some of the most honorable people in this country. They should not be on the streets. They've served our country, and we believe we should get them off the streets. They don't belong there, and they don't deserve to be there. And we also want to really hit on because most veterans are there because of either something that happened to them while they were either on tour in Afghanistan, or maybe an old Vietnam veteran just has post-traumatic stress disorder or any other disorder. We really want to hit hard on the whole mental aspect of things and get right rehab.
Well, it sounds like y'all have done a great job of both researching this issue and preparing to present it to the TeamPact student body. TeamPact highlighted that the reason they chose this issue is because they knew that candidates and students would be able to learn from this issue, to learn about this, what I would say is the homeless pandemic, really, that is mainly centered in California and that needs to be addressed. And so the fact that y'all have done the research, that y'all are preparing for NatCon by learning more about this issue and are learning how to present it to the rest of the TeamPact Nation is really encouraging, especially with an issue that is this serious, and even more so is actually present to a point to where TeamPacters can address and influence their current situations in their home states. Now, as we're winding down this interview, I wanted to ask, what is it through this campaign? Like, what is the most important thing that through this campaign you would like to tell or show to the TeamPact student body, either through your actions or your interactions through this campaign?
So I have 2 things I want to say, and then you can piggyback off me.
I'm gonna have to think about this.
Yeah. So 100% certain. We've been through about this from the start. If you go on our Instagram and you watch our intro video, the candidate videos, we mentioned both times that our goal in this isn't winning. I mean, it would be nice. I'm not gonna lie, it would be pretty cool, but
Let's get half of it.
But it isn't our main goal. Our main goal is to spread God's word, to minister to the student body, to do what is possible, and just do whatever God does through our campaign, just puts on our hearts to say while we're on stage, puts on our hearts while we're going around talking to students or talking to the voters while we're out there. But we 100%, while we're there, we have a very strict rule between the 2 of us of not talking about it unless someone asks us. Because personally, last year, I tried to relatively steer away from all things TeamPact politics, because it wasn't my forte. But running this year, I'm going with that same thing. Just if you want to talk about it, come talk to me about it, but I'm not going to bring it up. We have a bunch of things that we're going to be putting around campus. You'll find those. And then the second thing that we actually just recently discovered, and it was talking to actually another staffer, was that
We're not staffers.
we're not well. We're not staffers. We're both students running as
Instead of
president.
staffer like we are staffers.
Oh no, a president of a student-led campaign completely, and going with that forward. Even if we don't win, we want to set a foundation for students to be encouraged to run, even though staffers have been around the country, that you can still run and still get something out of it, and God will still work through your campaign, even though you may be only from one state.
Kind of going back what he was saying about the whole asking without things. I feel like last year it was my first year at NatCon. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know. Well, I knew him. I knew a few other people from Texas, but that's about it. I didn't know about any of the campaigns or anything like that. I was there and I listened to what people had to say, and whatever sounded the best is usually what I ended up voting for. And it's not everything I voted for won, but sometimes most of the ones I didn't vote for, because sometimes we just don't want to end up being in your face about our campaign. Like, hey, you're talking to your friends, but you call up a sudden come on the table. I was like, hey, I know you guys are having great conversations, but you should vote for me. And I think you should do that before you do anything else. We don't want to come off like that. We're students, and the best thing that we can do is we're up there to represent the student body because we're students, and we represent the students because we are students. I'm saying the same thing twice, but it's really, I just want to drive home the point of we don't want to be in anyone's face about it, and we're here to spread the word and spread it in a friendly and conservative manner. Well, not the word conservatively. You got to be maybe a little aggressive sometimes about spreading God's word, but not too aggressive.
Yeah, and like say something real quick, just for anybody watching.
Absolutely.
We don't dislike staffers. We have made jokes about it, and we will continue to joke about it. But we do not dislike staffers. We're not dissing them.
Most of the people I talk to at NatCon were staffers. Okay,
staffers are cool.
They're
okay?
very nice, especially Josh.
I will say I've never, in looking at your campaign, I never believed that y'all had any, discontent or disagreement with staffing in general. I think that y'all have done an excellent job. With kind of running, and while y'all have acknowledged the fact that you're a student campaign, you haven't made it an issue of students versus staffers. You kind of played into the joke of student campaigns past, and listening to that final message y'all gave, I'm encouraged in that because of the fact that your candidates are going to be there more so for the people rather than for the idea of winning, and I do appreciate that. I think that's something that most candidates should try and they should try and incorporate in their interactions at Team Patch, is focusing more so on the people, focusing on the relationships, rather than just constantly shoving in your face, hey, I'm running, you should vote for me. And so I really do appreciate that. And I'm hoping to see your campaign continue to develop as you move forward. As a young student campaign, it is really encouraging to see y'all doing well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I really appreciate you coming on. I will be praying for y'all as you continue to move forward, and we're excited to see what ends up happening at NatCon.
Awesome.
All right.
Perfect. All right. Y'all have a great evening.
You as well.
You too.